Hello and welcome back to A Splash of Paint. Now it gives me great pleasure to welcome back popular artist Marilyn Allis to the Splash of Paint studio. She demonstrates how to capture the colour and atmosphere of a bustling market day in Barbados in part one of today's Try Your Hand At project.
Today I'm going to be painting this scene from Barbados, a really local little market with these really interesting figures that caught my eye. I'm going to start with a wash of sunshine because it was really warm there. A little bit of raw sienna, the big brush, size 30 brush, and just wash that on quickly. Just gives you the feel of sunshine. You can wash over the bits that are going to be darker later. Just take that up there. If we don't need it, we can always paint over that later. Down to a size 16 brush, and we'll start with this fellow's head. I'm going to make the hat slightly orange. We're going to use a really bright Barbados colour, so a little bit of exaggeration. Now the sun is really hitting that hat on top, so watered down cadmium orange. And just into it a touch more orange, so that sort of bleeds in. If you look at his t-shirt, it's tie-dyed, so I'm just going to wet a little section. Normally I wouldn't put in all these colours, but I think because of the market, because it's Barbados, it's quite nice to include those little bits. So just blobs of colour whilst that's wet. There's some lemon yellow and some alizarin crimson going in there. A little bit of intense violet. He's got these lovely pattern trousers on, so again I'm just going to wet that all. I'm going to drip some French ultramarine into that. Actually, first of all, I'm going to wash over it with some intense violet because it's in shadow and that white isn't white. So that's some intense violet just being dripped into the water to darken that a little bit so that we know that that's in shadow. There's some quite thick French ultramarine. Just let that bleed in. I'm just going to use a little bit of sepia for his skin. It's just pure sepia on its own. The back of his neck is quite dark. It's in a lot of shadow. And that arm is quite dark. And this arm is catching the sunlight, so that bit's in shadow and the rest is in sunshine. And some burnt umber for his face, which is in sunshine. It's just a little bit lighter there. We use some of that intense violet for his carrier bag. I think it's quite nice to keep these carrier bags rather than try and alter it too much. It's a little bit of watered down intense violet, it's lighter at the top. And just thicker paint at the bottom. It's got all those goodies in there. So rather than a boring grey and white carrier bag, that's a nice bright intense mauve. You can drip a little bit of colour into there. I add a little bit of alizarin crimson. It could be tomatoes or something that's in that bag, just showing through. Some more sepia for his shoes. A little bit of them showing there, not too much. I'm going to use a little bit of Prussian blue for his t-shirt where the light's just hitting it on his shoulders. Just tease that in. I'm just going on to the little girl now. She's got a lovely green headdress on. So I'm going to mix some Prussian blue and some lemon yellow together. Quite watery at the top. The sun's hitting that beautifully. I'll just leave that to dry. Now her dress is beautifully tie-dyed. So again, we just wet all of that and then drip the colours in. That intense violet again, just wash that in, because most of this is in shadow. That's a lovely bright shadow colour for white. Back into that green, nice and thick this time, so we want it to show up. So a lot of paint, not too much water. And it doesn't have to be exactly where you see on the dress, just give the impression of something that's tie-dyed. And then I'm going to use again the same French ultramarine, very thick. Just give that tie-dyed feel. Right, back to the chap. That should be dry enough now to get those dark shadows in. So I'm going to use some French ultramarine and some burnt umber mixed together. I want it a blue shadow, just very, very thick. Just squint, keep looking to where those shadows are. It's all dark. A little bit on that sleeve, and this is where you find it really starts to look three-dimensional. Keep squinting, little dry brush marks for any creases on the fabric. That line comes more across there. There's a bit of shadow there. Using the tip of the brush to create those folds on the fabric. Right, the thicker marks on the trousers. Okay, and just a line there. Just keep squinting to see any folds that you can see. Slightly darker there. I just finished his headdress, so I'm just going to use some cadmium orange and some sepia just mixed together. Little band of yellow. Should use a finer brush. We use a size 10, some yellow. Right, And dark skin of the little girl, that can be sepia too. It's not too much showing. Her arm's slightly lighter, that's in more sunshine, so a little bit of burnt umber mixed into that. Now, a lot of her headdress is in shadow, so again a thick mix of the Prussian blue and lemon yellow, quite a lot of paint, not too much water. It starts to make the shape of it. There's dark joins where it's sort of wrapped around her head. And into the Prussian blue for any creases that we can see. Bottoms of her shoes. A little bit more sepia for her feet and her legs. They're in a lovely position. They're not sort of all posed, which is what's really nice about these photographs, that you can often capture if people don't realise that you're photographing them. So we're about halfway through, and we'll join you later on in the programme where I'll be finishing this off.
Thanks, Marilyn. Great to see how watercolours work with your lovely loose and impressionistic style. It's the perfect painting combination, and we look forward to seeing part 2 later on in today's programme. Okay, it's time to take a little break now again, folks, but join us in part 3 when renowned watercolour artist Geoff Kersey returns to share his top art bite tip for producing the perfect flat surface to give your watercolour paintings that ultimate professional feel. See you soon.